So here comes the more exciting part of building this navigation, which is to actually make it work as soon as we hit that navigation button. So let's do that. So first of all, we need to hide this background here again and also hide this navigation, right? So let's do that. Where is this? Yeah, here. So remember, we didn't want this one here. So let's make it disappear. And then here we have the button. And actually, we should add some shadows here. Okay. So a box shadow of 1 in the Y direction, a nice blur, and then a color of, once again, black, right? So just a very subtle shadow here, right? So that's what it looks like. And now, of course, we have to get rid of the navigation here as well. So where is that? Yeah, this is the one. So how are we going to do that? Well, we can use opacity 0, such as we did before. Now there's a problem with that, which is that with this alone, we will actually make it opaque, but you see that, well, now I cannot show you, but the links, okay, they're still here. So you see that the hand is here at some of these places. So they are invisible now, but they are still there. So what we should do here is to also set the width to a 0. And actually we have it up here. So let's remove that. And so now it should work just fine. So the text is now gone. The only text we have here now is this H1 that we have. Okay, so we hit the navigation and we hit the background. Now all we have to do is to actually bring them back to life, let's say so. And so this is where we use the checkbox hack. So how do we do that? Remember from the booking lecture where we did the radio buttons? So this is very similar to that. So we have our checkbox, we have our label, and we have our background. So we hit the label and the checkbox becomes checked. And then we want the navigation background here to become visible. So how do we translate that into a CSS selector? Well, it's actually not so hard. We just write checkbox and a checked pseudo class again, just as we did with the radio button. And then we use the sibling selector. Remember that one? Now this time it's not an adjacent sibling because it's not the direct sibling, right? So the one that we want to select here is now this one. And so the adjacent sibling of the checkbox would be this one, but that's not the one that we want. We want this here. And so we just use the general sibling, and then with that we will be able to select the right element. So background. And that's actually it. So remember how we increased the size of this? We simply scaled it 80 times. This is what we actually did. Okay, so let's see if that works. So we hit this and whoa, here we go. And now it disappears and it comes back and it appears. And so it is working. Great, right? We don't have the animation yet in place, but we're going to take care of that in a second. But for now, let's do the same with the navigation, okay? So it's the same really. And so all we have to do here is to replace it with nav. And then what happens here is, of course, that we remove what we did here before. So the opacity is no longer 0 and the width is no longer 0 as well. So opacity 1, width back to 100%. So let's take a look at that. And here we go. So it works without the animation, but it works. And so for the animation, this is also very simple. It's just the transition that we have used before. So we need a transition on the background as well as on the nav element. So transition. And what we want to transition here is just a transform. So let's just put transform here instead of transitioning everything. And then let's put in 0.8 second here. So a very long one. Now this time around, we're going to add a custom transition timing function here. For now, let's just add the transition to the other element and just take a look how it looks like, okay? And so here, transition, And in here, we only want to really animate the opacity, okay? So the width, it should be instantaneous. So instantly it should become 100%. But the opacity, that's the one that we want to actually animate. And so we say opacity and also 0.8 seconds. All right. And that should be enough already. All right. And well, actually we have to animate the width as well, because now you see it goes here like to this side in this weird way, right? So let's put it here to all, right? Well, now you see this is like weirdly moving in from the side and moving out like this, okay? And that's not at all what we want to happen, but I believe that this is because we didn't specify a width here for this element. So for this list, okay? So if we set this to 100%, then that should not be happening. So navigation list, okay? And we say width 100%. Let's reload that. Well, and it actually makes sense that this is happening, because remember, when we close this entire container here reduces its width from 100%, so everything, all until the way to 0. And since we fixed it here at the right side, then this thing here also moves to the right side, okay? Let me demonstrate that to you. So first of all, let's put it to left here, okay? We want this to move to the left. At least that will make it look a bit better. And then background color, and you can guess it, orange, red. So let's take a look at that right now. So this is what happens, you saw? And now when I hit this button, you will see this orange here moving to that side. And so therefore, since this here is always centered in this container, it will move to that side. So you saw that? Okay. And so that's what happened. But that's actually not a big problem, because basically this automatically gives us a nice animation effect, right? So this box moving in like that. Now I promised you that we would take care of a custom transition timing function, okay? So here and here as well. So let's now do that. So we saw in other lectures that there are a bunch of built-in transition timing functions, like ease in or ease out or ease in out. But this time we want to use our custom one. And for that one, we use something called cubic Bezier functions, okay? Now in here we have to put 4 numbers that define the cubic Bezier curve. But since we don't really know which numbers to put, there's a nice tool which can help us with that. And actually 2 tools, because this one and this one. So here are a bunch of different functions that we can use. Now again, what an easing function is basically a function that specifies how much a change occurs over time, okay? And that's exactly what this is here. So take a look at these red markers. So this one started slow, accelerated, and then slowed down again. Take a look again. And this one here makes it even more and even more in here, you saw. So really slow beginning, then really fast, you see this here, and then really slow. Then we have these ones here, something like this. But for now, let's use this one here, okay? I really like this one. So we're gonna use that for the background. So we can just click this here, and then all we have to do is to copy this curve. You put it here, or actually we only need the numbers. Already wrote the function, and so we just need the numbers. And now let's take a look at how it looks like. Well, that was different, right? So just as in the example, it comes really easy and then it accelerates like crazy. You saw that? So let's stick with that. And of course you can use other functions. If you like another one more, use that. And just to have this more visually, this is how these functions actually work, so these numbers. So if we push these here or pull them down, then we have something like this. So this is a bit similar to the function that we have, right? Well, maybe not exactly like this. Well, I'm not sure, it doesn't really matter. But in here we can then compare these cubic Bezier functions that we draw here with one of the built-in ones. Okay, so if we hit on go, Then the pink one is the one that we wrote in here, and the blue one is the built-in. So for example, the ease in out, let's say. If we compare it with this one, then you see this one is really slow at the beginning and at the end, but then it's really fast. And that's like this huge slope that you see here going on. Now, if you did it the other way around, something like this, you'll now see that it will accelerate pretty fast, then it will slow down, move actually back a bit, and then become really fast again at the end. So let's take a look. And you saw that moving back, it was this part here. So from here to here, it moved back and then really fast at the end. Let's take a look again. There it is. And yeah, so you can really like play around with this. And now this will be even more dramatic. Okay, so there's a lot of different functions that we can draw basically with this. So let's take a look now at this one, for example. So I really like to play around with this. So now in this case, we already have these predefined functions here, which are pretty great, but you can always, if you want, play around with this one. Now for the navigation itself, let's add another function. And the one I'm going to use is this one. And so this one, as you can already see here, it will move out a little bit. So let's actually copy the entire thing here now, because in here we haven't put it already. All right, so let's take a look now, refresh, and here we go. And so now you saw that it actually moved a bit to that side first, so to the right side. And why did that happen? Well, simply because this width, so this 100% width here, it got a bit larger, so it got maybe 110% because of this curve. So because the curve here actually comes out of this one here, let's say. So we have something like this, right? And so you will see that this now will probably move a bit out here, actually like this. So you saw it's moved a bit in this direction, then it came back. And that's because this here is higher than the 100%. Actually, it says here 105%. And you can see it here as well. It says this curve contains values out of range. And that makes for this effect, which can be really cool sometimes. And in this case, I think it looks good. And so let's keep it that way. But of course, I invite you to play around with this, get your own style maybe, and yeah, play around with this, okay? All right, so this is already pretty similar to what we have here. All that's left to do is to actually create this button here. So these three lines, which open and close and close and open. Okay, that's actually a bit more complex than it looks like. And so we're gonna leave that for the next lecture. So if you wanna know how to do it, don't take a break and come right with me. Okay, see you in a second.